You know that feeling when you're interested in philosophy and you decide to read, you pick up a book, but then your brain decides to shut down. It's too abstract, nothing makes sense, and you can't help but remember this meme. Well, I felt exactly like that till I chanced upon Sarah Bakewell's At the Existentialist Cafe, Freedom Being an Apricot Cocktails. Now, why are we reviewing a book on existentialism today? Because if I were to believe each of those corporate manager memes, then that's a question you ask yourself every single day. What am I doing here? What am I here for? Is there a larger purpose? Do I have the freedom to choose? Well, Sarah Bakewell takes you through the lives of Jean-Paul Sartre, Simone de Beauvoir, and a bunch of their friends to discuss how existentialism came about. But why should this book matter to someone who's living outside of this Parisian bubble of privilege? Well, let me tell you two things that Sarah Bakewell has done perfectly well in this book. A, she presents Jean-Paul Sartre, Simone de Beauvoir, and a bunch of their friends as people like you and me. They're messy individuals with extremely complicated lives, their betrayals, their fallouts, there are arguments. Secondly, you'll realize that this philosophy was not developed in an ivory tower. It comes from real lived experiences and the lives of each of these philosophers turned completely upside down due to the Second World War. Here is where the story begins. Jean-Paul Sartre, Simone de Beauvoir, and Raymond Aron are sitting at a bar sipping on apricot cocktails in Paris, and Raymond Aron has just returned from Berlin and he's talking about phenomenology to them, and Sartre is electrified. Cut to 1939. Sartre is conscripted in the army because of the Second World War, but he can't be on the battlefront because of his eye problems. So, what is he tasked to do? He's turned into a meteorologist. His literal job is to send balloons up in the air to check on wind direction, and he knows for a fact that the absurdity of this job would not get him anywhere, that his reports would in fact be binned. In 1940, Sartre is captured as a prisoner of war and he's taken to a camp where he lives for 9 months. Now, how does he escape the camp? He asks for a medical slip to go get his eyes checked and never comes back. Meanwhile, in Paris, Simone de Beauvoir is oddly unaffected by the war. When the Germans invade Paris, she flees the city only to return a couple of weeks later because she was bored. However, with the passage of time, the war did transform her. Years later, she regretted, saying, "I regret it took a war to teach me. I lived in the world, not outside it." She joined the resistance, published novels, and developed her groundbreaking feminist philosophy. Sarah Bakewell manages to balance philosophy and storytelling very well. What this book does not deliver on is perhaps an analysis of existentialism, but what it does bring home is the fact that fear, anxiety, love, betrayal, fallouts, all of these things that govern our lives are things that govern their lives, and that led them to develop this philosophy. I hope you enjoyed going through this review as much as I enjoyed reading this book. And do let me know if you've come across Sarah Bakewell's At the Existentialist Cafe. I wish it had a recipe of the apricot cocktail as well. But do let me know what you think about this review. Thank you for watching.